Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the So What Now What podcast hosted by yours truly, basically Bryn. Today's guest is Artemis Limpert. She's world renowned. We're going to talk to her about her struggles, her pivots, and everything in between. So lean in. Hey guys, welcome back to the So What Now What podcast. I want to introduce to you guys this very special guest to me today. This is Artemis Limpert. Let me tell you who Artemis Limpert is. Actually, if you don't know who she is, you should Google her. You'll be amazed that she's even talking to me right now.
So, I love this woman. I'm so happy that she is in person with me.
People pay her big bucks to come and talk to them, and I'm touching her. So Artemis is one of my mentors, one of my coaches, one of my partners in the company that I work for called New Skin. I don't know if I've ever told you guys that, but this is one of the reasons that I do what I do every single day. She inspires us, she teaches us, she motivates us, she is just beyond words what I can even explain to you guys right now. So please go look her up, go Google her, and you'll see why I asked her to be on here with me today. So you've been with the company for
This is my
25th?
23rd. I've done 23 years. This is my 24th year.
Okay, so one thing that we always start with on our podcast is, what is some of the best advice that you've ever been given?
Before I went into free enterprise, probably some of the best advice I got was from my favorite boss. And it was early in my career. I started out as a hairdresser. I went back to college when I was 25, graduated when I was 28, and went into business. And my first boss was amazing. And I was playing it really safe because I didn't want to make a mistake, and I wanted to kind of make sure everything was okay. And I kept checking in with him, and he was like, Artemis, I want you to trust your gut. And I was like, well, I just want to make sure I don't make a mistake. And he was like, you know what? If we're going to do great things together, you need to be fearless and go ahead and make mistakes, and then we'll just fix whatever. But he goes, if you play it too safe, we're not going to get where we need to go. And he was the first person to be like, it's good. The learning process isn't that way. And I'm forever grateful that he did that, and we accomplished something together that hadn't been able to be accomplished for 15 years by other teams. And he was a guy who didn't even deserve, he deserved it. He wasn't the person in marketing. He was a guy that was working in a completely different area, but he believed it could be done. And that working with him was probably one of the beginning changes of opening my eyes to hey, there's a lot to learn, and there's a lot that you've got to, the leaps that you've got to take to trust your gut, trust yourself, and trust that, I always say this, you've got to be willing to be bad enough for long enough to get really good. I think that was a person who was at the top of this company when I was coming in, and he shared that with me. And I never forgot it. You gotta be willing to be bad enough for long enough to get good.
That is incredible advice. And how many of us are too scared to be bad for any amount of time? But if we can just be bad enough long enough, then we'll be better because of it. Our character will be built from it. There'll be building blocks to get us to where we want to go. But some of us are too scared to even try to even make one mistake. I mean, I've been in this business with her for 2 years, and I have been scared out of my mind to do all the things that I want to do to get to where I want to go. And
she made some shifts this weekend, so get ready.
I did, so get ready. So do you know what the So What Now What podcast, do you know where it stemmed from?
No, please tell me.
So my 16-year-old son, Bo, he travels all over the country to play baseball. He was playing baseball in Louisville, Kentucky, and he had this coach called Coach Spug. He was the coolest guy, and stuff would happen on the field. A kid would miss a ball, they would, miss an at-bat, and, most coaches would yell, scream, holler, but he was always like, okay, so what, now what? What are you going to do from here? How are you going to pivot in a new direction?
I love that name, so what, now what?
Bo was like, Mom, how cool would it be if we could quote Coach Spug? So we called him, and he said, absolutely, y'all can use that. But that was his motto, and we've used it. He was probably 11 years old at the time, and it's just something that's stuck with us.
I love that.
So what, now what? How are we going to pivot from here?
Yeah. And well, I always share with people as well, this was really helpful for me to realize a lot of us, and this is the way we've been trained in our culture, which is, don't really approach things until you know you can do it, because you don't want to disappoint other people. And then after a while, I hear people say, well, I don't want to shoot for that goal because I shot for it last time and I didn't make it happen. And I try to say to people, listen, when you're going after something, there's only two things that are going to happen. Either you are going to accomplish it, or you are going to build the muscle in order to accomplish it. And we showed a video of a bunch of different athletes that are Olympic now when they were young that their families had of them as they were working in the sport. And it's a beautiful collage of pictures because you get to see the adult version, but you get to see all the trials along the way from the time that they were very little to the time that they were in their toddlers doing their sport, to the time that they were in their teens, to then them doing their Olympic runs. And we showed that this weekend to go, yeah, this is the process that it really is. And yet we have this other ideal of what we think it is. And there's no way to go after a dream that's big without risking, because the way that we go after that is to never set your goals at your current level of abilities. And that right there is so interesting because people want this, and I know I did it for many years until I finally really learned and got challenged enough and just wanted it enough to go, okay, let me keep setting it out of the bounds of what I already know how to do so I can keep growing.
You have to get outside your comfort zone, and you have to get outside the box. You have to get over yourself in order to get further up the ladder or further down the road or wherever it is that you're wanting to go. You have to get over your own self. And that's one of the things that I took away from this week particularly is that there are going to be lots of obstacles in the road, but you are the one that's going to be the roadblock for yourself, and you're the only one that can move that. And if you can just forget everything else and just remember that it is all you, it is all in your mindset, it's all in your head, and if you can just get out of your own way, then you can accomplish just about anything.
It's true.
So what roadblocks have you had that you've had to really just kind of shift and pivot directions?
Well, the biggest mind block for me, the biggest was the fact that I had a lot of self-hatred, that, I learned how to hide, and I learned how to professionally when I was in business to excel at skills that didn't challenge that thought. And when I was 28, a woman who was an amazing spirit, she was a person who ministered to churches and ministered to pastors and ministered, and I had the privilege of working with her for several years. But when I first met her, I cried through the 5 days that she was teaching, and there were so many things that she was opening up my eyes to. And there was a particular experience that I'd had throughout my life where women would come up to me who didn't even know me from the time I was in like 4th grade all the way up to this point I'm 28, and would just say, I don't like you, or I hate you, or whatever. And I always had this identity that there must be something I'm doing that offends people. So by the age of 28, I didn't even look women in the eye. Like I just was like, I don't think I'm a guy. I think I probably would have made a better guy. It's not on the transition, but I completely did not understand women. Mm-hmm. And so Leanne said to me at the end of this week, as I was saying, this is a recurring thing, and she said, Artemis, people are taking you at your own self-assessment. Now, this had to lay on top of my head for about a decade, but in the moment that she said it to me, I just wept, and I was like, are you telling me that I'm somehow, I'm in control of this? Because this was
what did I have anything to do with their
such a wild thing, but I will tell you that in my 30s, sometimes, I don't know if you guys ever saw the movie Made in Manhattan. I made my husband sit through the whole movie again for this one line. Okay, my husband was like, seriously, we gotta sit through this again? I was like, yes, I want to get this line as it was really said. So she gets fired and her boss quits. And she says, you didn't have to do that. And he says, sometimes life forces us in directions that we should have already voluntarily chosen. I was like, oh! So as soon as we got to that point in the movie and I heard it, I was like, okay, we can go. My husband's like, yeah, really. Sometimes life forces us in the direction that we should have already voluntarily chosen. We already kind of had the understanding, but we were afraid to step out. So the times in my life when life has pushed me to the place where finally I was ready to stand up a little bit more, and it got to the place where as I stood up a little bit stronger and a little bit more, instead of being internally not feeling like that's the right thing to do or not even knowing how to be honest, that people started to be different, things started to shift. And then when I started this business, I had to start speaking and stepping up more, and it was funny. When I started actually being asked to speak publicly, which was never a goal, but as that started happening, and people in other companies started asking me to speak, women would come up to me in the beginning and say, I didn't think I was gonna like you. But then I heard you, and I'm like, all right, we're going somewhere now. Now after they decided they like me, they're telling me I didn't think I was gonna like you instead of. But she was totally right when she said, as I released my own self-hatred and moved into self-acceptance, there is a message that you and I send out as to we're the ones that train other people how to treat us. And so
Yes.
honestly, that sat on my head for about 10 years. And when I spoke at a particular place the first time outside of the people I was used to speaking in front of, my brother gave a CD to Leanne. This is a decade later, and Leanne listened to it and said, she finally got it. And I just smiled because I was like, that's so funny because yes, I finally got it. People are taking us at our own self-assessment, and the more that what I've learned is the more I backed away because I was afraid instead of stepping forward. And we talked today about leaning into your dream instead of backing away from it. But the more I backed up and the smaller I tried to make myself, the more it occurred. And the more I learned to straighten up and step forward, even though it was scary to learn you are lovable and you find your tribe, you find your people. But when you step back, you not only don't stop whatever you're afraid of, but you also don't ever find your tribe, your people, where you can really release and start to serve with all the gifts that are really in there and do the same for others.
And something that you just said resonates deep. Do you ever watch my coffee talks in the morning?
I have watched.
So lately,
She's amazing. And I want to tell you that honestly, some of the real gifts in her are just starting to come forward. So if you have loved her so far, please, over this next year to two, I promise you the wisdom that's going to come through this woman is going to continue to get stronger and stronger.
Thank you. Well, in my coffee talk, this whole last week, it's been talking about how we take past hurts and we project them onto our current people that are in our lives now, and they may never have intended it to sound like that, but we were hurt the same way in the past, so we project that on people. So do you ever do that in your life now because of what the girls did and said to you and made you feel back then, or do you think that you've
no, that now I love women, and you guys are going to laugh at this, but when I first started this business, I had just gotten married, and I had told my husband while we were dating, by the way, like I'm never ever like rooming with a woman ever. That'll never happen. So I started this business. We are just married. I started this business like 8 weeks after we're married, and I'm going to an event. And I said, remember, I told you I'm going to be rooming with 3 guys. I'm newly married, and my husband trusted me and knew me, but I didn't understand how weird that was. To be honest with you, I thought that was like, yeah, we're good. Yeah, like I can't.
You laid it out there.
I can't, but I just thought it was normal to be like, yeah, I didn't even realize really how much you're asking somebody of the opposite sex to understand, but he let me walk it out to the place. But I love women now, so that's not the thing. But I will tell you an area where I still have to watch that, which is, everybody has things that happened in their past. And as women were sharing this weekend, some of the things that shape or try and shape your core identity. One woman had said that her mom, the person you expect to love and support you the most when she was 18, told her that she had never been proud of her one moment in her life. And then this woman is seriously a badass. And
she is one of the most incredible women.
But a lot of women share, these different things. So for me, there were some things that occurred for me with my dad, and I waited 39 years to get married to not repeat the past, only to walk right into it. Mm-hmm. So I would say that as I'm learning that, there are healthy men, there are amazing men, and not only that, but that I can be loved by that is really interesting. So I went out on a date just recently, and this gentleman is a Christian, and he invited me to a beautiful pageant for Christmas that was amazing. And I shared with him a vulnerable moment, saying that years ago some strange things had occurred in church settings, and I've been a Christian since I was 11. And I just said, I got to the place where I was like, hey, I know spirit is super important, but organized church is sometimes a little scary. And as I was driving to this pageant, I'm being vulnerable with him, saying I started to get nervous. And I actually parked like across the street from this 7,000 person thing. Anyway, I shared that with him, and we got together 3 times in places where we never got a chance to really talk. One was a concert, one was this. Mm-hmm. All of them were noisy things. And this gentleman's protection of himself and the fear of rejection and what he thought of women, he doesn't know me at all. We've never chatted, never really talked at all about anything. And he wrote me and said, I can tell that you haven't done your personal work. Interestingly enough, that's been my life's work, and it's my life's work with others. But anyway, that was a projection. You've never done I know you haven't done personal work. I know you're a type A personality. I'm like, actually I'm not, but that doesn't matter. Neither here nor there. It's looking at the projections that someone is putting on. And I know you don't know how to be alone. And I was like, oh gosh, actually, this is so fascinating. I love to be alone. I had no idea where this was coming from, right? I offered a conversation, and he said, I don't want to have a conversation, but I really think if you want to, I offered to get together. And he goes, yeah, I think we really should, because I think you need to know. And then he wrote some other things. And finally, I just said, you know what, I really, neither here nor there, I want to wish you the best. I want to thank you for sharing things that you really loved and enjoyed. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because there might be things like this. He then wrote and said, I overstepped my own boundaries in the last time that we were together, and this finally shared where he was coming from. And I was like, oh. But I'm going to share what he said, and then I'm going to share how it hit me. And I was like, Artemis, this could have triggered some things. So what he said is, because you shared that thing about the church that made you nervous, that proves that you haven't done your personal work. And I thought, that's interesting. And then he said, you know, I made a promise to myself, one of my boundaries is that I don't date women who can't afford to live alone. I have a friend of mine who lives upstairs, and I've had many people live in my home upstairs that, I've done that probably for the last 25 years. Anyway, I have a boundary that I'm not gonna date women who can't afford to live alone or can't be alone. And what's this about the fact that she cooks? She loves to barbecue, and she's a master barbecuer. And I'm like, wow, she barbecue. But anyway, what was interesting to me is it triggered. Again, I was thinking, and you're wondering why I wouldn't want to go to an organized church, and it's because of behavior like this. That is the reason why that would be scary, right? But I didn't say any of that. I just thought, again, I want to wish you the best, but I had to manage within myself that it would be easy to be afraid of men. It would be easy to be afraid to go, wow, this just isn't worth it. But instead to say, you know what, there are healthy men, there are healthy relationships, and stay in the lane that allows possibility. Mm-hmm. Because often when you have a vulnerable place, it will be tested to see if you're willing to have an open hand still and believe in what you are understanding and where you want to go, instead of letting people trigger you to pull you back into your past. And so I hope that wasn't too open with you, since we don't know each other. But when she asked me, it's like, the women don't scare me anymore, but there are places in my life that you're still like, let me keep the perspective, even though those places are not necessarily fulfilled in this moment in terms of, that area. And it may never be, and that's fine, but somebody's testing, going, well, here's the reason why. Because you're this and you're that, and you're just like, okay, hold on. He's working out his fear of women, and he's also working out his fear of rejection. It's all good, right? So instead of even trying to say anything back, just to go, you know what, let me realize this is not a place we'll be able to communicate. But there's so many places.
Which is crazy, because I feel like you get misconstrued a lot. First of all, I thought she was a whole lot shorter in person. The first time I met her a year ago, I was like, oh, she's a whole lot taller than I thought she was, because I'd only ever met her for the year prior, sitting down in Zoom across the screen. And
here's the thing, I had no idea she was a teeny thing sitting. So she said, I thought you were a lot shorter. I said, sweetheart, you're such a teeny thing. But you're so powerful that I had this picture that you were taller, so we laughed.
Tiny but a big person.
Yeah, that's it. We laughed.
But we can just get so caught up in the things that we think about people. Also, our whole team, well, most of them thought you were a lion. Now, what book is that from? Can you tell them?
How to Be a Zookeeper by Nigel Risner, Risner, about different personality types. And after we were explaining, the lion, which is somebody who's really goal-oriented and really going to go after alone and always going to be the best. And then the dolphin, that is someone like Kumbaya, and they're really like, let's all, two dolphins in here. And then there's the elephants that are very detailed people. In order for them to feel confident in things, they're the detailed people. And then there's the monkeys, the people that, if it's not fun, we're not doing it. Fun is what it has to be, and they bring the fun to the party of all these things. So then we brought women up that with different personalities and asked them different things about life and business, and the responses from the different places were just really funny for people to go, oh, like if I communicate with a monkey as if I would an elephant with detail, the monkey is like going to tune you out in like 15 seconds.
Right. And so I think I'm going to challenge you guys to get that book, read it, figure out what
It's
you
a
are,
good book.
figure out what your circle of people are. I mean, just learning about it this weekend, it makes me realize which ones my kids are, which one my spouse is.
I mean, we're all
how-
a mix of all of them.
Yeah.
We have a primary one that is.
Oh yeah, I have one kid that is an elephant. He is a goal list maker, very
There you
organized. I
go.
mean, he makes my sticky notes to pack to come. He will make my checklist because I am not organized at all. And he's like, okay, Mom, here's your packing checklist. Make sure you have your underwear and all your things that you need for help. He's incredible. But they're all so different. And I think that if we would just get that mentality that everybody in life is going to be different than we are. I mean, we're both dolphins, but she's a force, y'all. When I first met her, I mean, a lion for sure.
But you're meeting me in the area.
And
You're meeting
and your
me.
highlight reel.
Yeah, you're meeting me in the area where my passion comes forward. And so most people think I'm super outgoing. They don't realize I'm a homebody. Like, if you were going to meet me outside of when I'm in an area of passion, people think, oh, she's like always like this and she must be always out. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm the girl that you would only see if you knock on my door. Like, I'm a super homebody, I'm super quiet. And but you're meeting me in an area of excellence that I've developed over 25 years. And so you're meeting me in that area where there's nothing I wouldn't do to help you bring out your best. There's nothing like it. You know, that's where the lion does come forward. I'll be a lion on behalf of you, you know, and understanding that. And we all have that. You know, moms are like that with their kids. Like, there's a lion, even if no matter what your personality, you're going to be a lion for your kids.
For sure. Well, is there any last piece of advice that you would like to leave us with? I mean, you've left us with so much, and I appreciate that. And I hope you guys have gotten as much out of this as I was hoping that you would, because I knew asking you to do this, it would be just, you guys are just going to be blessed by listening to this. Is there any last piece?
You're sweet. You know, the biggest thing that I would say is, you know, there's as a loner, which I think a lot of us are, you know, the biggest thing about life is that when you're going after anything big, it's going to require people that you have not yet met, whatever it is. If it's personal, if it's business, whatever, when you're going after something that is inspired within you, that's big, part of it that we always say to people is the how is going to be none of your business. But the what you want, and then the getting close to people who have created or done. Because there's three things that we could do. We could do it alone, which is the choice most people try. And then there's the do it in groups, which is powerful because you're working with other people that are like-minded. And then there's the ability to have also personal coaching. And I've done, you know, my style would have been do it alone. Always do it alone. Like, I'd be the girl that wouldn't go to the gym because there's other people there. And when I was buying a sports car, the guy tried to tell me this when I was in my 30s. He was like, oh, the cool part about this is that there's a club for the people who buy this kind of car. And I'm like, that's the reason not to buy the car for me. Right? He was like saying, this is like a big thing. You can be with these other people who have this car. I'm like, yeah, that's the reason not to buy it. And I was the girl that if someone in a store tried to come up and help me, I would say to the salesperson, thank you so much, but if you don't go away, I'm gonna have to leave the store. Like, I'll be like, you know, and
leave
so
me alone until after
to get exactly, so to get to a place of realizing whatever it is that you want, it's gonna be partnership that helps you get there. We don't know how to usually bring out our best, even in places, and so I would say keep connecting with Bryn and let her know what is something you want to grow in 24, and let her bring in 2024, and let her bring things to the table that would particularly address some of the things you're really wanting to stretch out into in 24.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, you're amazing.
This is going to be a good year.
It's
going to be a growth year.
It is going to be a good year. And mark my words, seriously, I've watched some of the places where Bryn is looking at what she wants to, how she wants to serve, who she wants to bless, and the fact that she's going to require herself to develop those things deeply in order to be able to share what the steps are, and not just the outside steps, not just the logical things, but the internal things that have to come along with it. And she's made she's opened some amazing doors. And so I hope you guys do reach out in the communications with her online to say, this is where I'm wanting to stretch, and I'd love to know more about blank, and let her bring these things to the relationship that you guys have.
Oh yes, please do. You guys know where to find me. And again, I appreciate y'all for tuning in to the So What Dylan podcast, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thank you so much. Bye.
Wow, what a great episode of the So What Now What podcast. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll talk to you guys next time. And don't forget, it's not about what happens later. It's about so what, now what. What happened and what are we going to do from here? Let's go.